The massive crystal hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with panic. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for an emergency meeting, their faces showing fear that hadn't been seen in centuries. The giant holographic screens around the chamber displayed the same terrifying image over and over. Entire star systems going completely dark, swallowed by an ancient enemy that had awakened from its long sleep. Counselor Vexithara stood at the center of the room, her transparent, crystal body glowing with worry. She was one of the Zephyrians, a race that had mastered energy technology thousands of years ago. Her voice echoed through the chamber as she spoke. "3 of our most important worlds are gone," she announced, her words heavy with sadness. "Our energy shields, the ones we spent 10,000 years making perfect, lasted only minutes against these creatures. They just ate through them like they were nothing." The mechanical representative of the Nexus Collective stepped forward. His name was Prime 77, and his cybernetic body was covered in blinking lights and spinning parts. When he spoke, his voice sounded like a computer. "My calculations show we have a 99.97% chance of complete destruction within 2.5 years, he said coldly. "These Void Reapers can phase in and out of dimensions. No weapon we have can touch them." At the back of the chamber, a small group sat quietly. They were humans, the newest members of the Galactic Council. Most other species didn't think much of them. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and their technology seemed basic compared to civilizations that had been traveling between stars for millennia. Dr. Kim Dae-ho, a middle-aged man with graying hair, raised his hand. He was Earth's top scientist who studied alien life forms. "If I could make a suggestion, we should listen to the more experienced voices first," Counselor Vexithara interrupted, not even looking at him. "Perhaps the younger species should watch and learn from those who have dealt with galactic threats before." The human delegation exchanged looks. Lee Soo-jin, a tough military woman with short black hair, glanced at Park Jin-woo, their chief engineer. They had been studying the same data as everyone else, but they saw something different. While the aliens talked about what was impossible, the humans saw patterns and opportunities. An Etherian representative floated into the discussion. The Etherians were beings of pure mental energy who could read thoughts and move objects with their minds. This one's voice spoke directly into everyone's heads. "We tried to attack their consciousness directly," the mental voice said sadly. "But they share one giant mind. Our strongest psychic warriors couldn't even scratch their thoughts. It's like trying to move a mountain with a feather." More reports came in throughout the meeting. The Kethavar Dominion, masters of time manipulation. Technology had tried to slow down the Reapers or trap them in time loops. Nothing worked. The Aurelius Empire, whose plasma weapons could destroy entire moons, found their most powerful shots simply absorbed by the creatures. Dr. Song Ha-yoon, a young woman who specialized in energy systems, whispered to her human colleagues, "If these things are truly ancient, then they've survived this long by being perfectly designed for one job. But sometimes being perfect at one thing means you're weak in other areas." The council meeting went on for hours. Each species shared their failures and their fear. The Reapers seemed unstoppable. They appeared out of nowhere, surrounded star systems with their dark energy fields, and consumed everything. Planets, stars, space stations, entire civilizations, all turned into food for these cosmic predators. Captain Choi Min-ho, a career military officer, took notes on everything being said. But he wasn't writing down information about weapons or defenses. Instead, he was noting how the Reapers behaved, what they seemed to want, and most importantly, their apparent obsession with consuming energy. As the meeting continued, it became clear that the galaxy's greatest minds were stuck. The Zephyrians suggested building bigger shields. The Nexus Collective wanted to calculate better escape routes. The Etherians proposed trying to hide entire worlds using mental illusions. But none of these ideas addressed the real problem. Major Young Woo Jin, listening from the back, noticed something interesting. Every species was trying to use their greatest strength against the Reapers. The Crystal Masters wanted better crystals. The machine builders wanted smarter machines. The mind readers wanted stronger mental powers. But what if their greatest strengths were exactly the wrong approach. The meeting ended with no real solutions. The alien representatives returned to their homeworlds to prepare for evacuation or make last stands. There was talk of fleeing to other galaxies, of hiding in the empty spaces between stars, of accepting defeat with dignity. But the human delegation had different plans. As they prepared to return to Earth, Dr. Kim Dae-ho looked at his team with determination. "Everyone thinks this is hopeless," he said quietly. "But that just means no one has tried the right impossible idea yet." Lieutenant Yoon So-young, their quantum physics expert, smiled grimly. "Good thing humans specialize in impossible ideas." They had work to do, and not much time to do it. While the galaxy prepared for the end, humanity was just getting started. Deep underground in Seoul, Dr. Kim Dae-ho stared at a glowing hologram of a Void Reaper floating in the air before him. The creature looked like a massive jellyfish made of dark energy, with tentacles that stretched for miles. Around him, his team worked frantically in the cramped research facility that looked nothing like the grand alien laboratories they had seen. The human lab was a mess of cables running along walls, computers from different companies all connected together, and the constant noise of overworked cooling fans. Coffee cups and half-eaten meals sat next to billion-dollar alien technology that the humans had somehow convinced other species to lend them. Park Jin-woo wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the hologram controls. He was a brilliant engineer who had spent his career fixing things that weren't supposed to be fixable. "Every species out there is trying to build a bigger gun," he said, making the image of the Reaper spin slowly. "But what if we're thinking about this completely wrong?" Dr. Song Ha-yoon looked up from her computer screen, which showed endless streams of data about the Reaper's feeding patterns. She was young but had already earned respect for her work with energy systems. "Look at how they eat," she said, pointing at the numbers scrolling by. "They don't just absorb energy like a battery. They need it constantly like oxygen. It's not just food for them, it's everything." Captain Choi Min-ho leaned over the table, his military uniform wrinkled from days of non-stop work. "What are you saying? That we should try to starve them?" Dr. Kim smiled for the first time in weeks, but it wasn't a happy smile. "Better than that. What happens to any system when you give it too much of what it wants?" The team had been working in shifts around the clock for 3 months. While the greatest civilizations in the galaxy used their most advanced technology, the humans did something different. They combined their own simple engineering with pieces of alien tech, creating hybrid devices that no pure alien civilization would ever think to build. Lieutenant Yoon So-young had been the first to make a breakthrough. She was a quiet woman who understood quantum physics better than most computers. "Their absorption field works on 17 different dimensional frequencies," she explained, showing her teammates a complex diagram. "But there's a gap right here." She pointed to a thin line on the chart. "It's probably a blind spot. They never evolved to absorb energy in this range because nothing in nature makes it." "Except us," Park Jin-woo said with a grin, holding up a device that looked like someone had crossed a microwave with a laser gun. Wires stuck out everywhere, and parts of it were held together with military-grade tape. "I call it the paradox generator. It makes energy that technically shouldn't exist according to the laws of physics." Major Young Woo-jin studied the tactical possibilities, but he looked worried. "Even if this works, we'd need perfect timing across the entire galaxy. If we mess up the timing even a little bit, the Reapers will adapt and we'll never get another chance." "Then we don't give them time to adapt," Captain Choi replied. "We hit them everywhere at once with something they've never seen before." Dr. Song Ha-yoon was already working on the next part of the plan. Her computer showed star maps with glowing dots marking energy signatures. "What if we could create fake energy sources, like mirages that look like entire star systems full of delicious energy? We could control where they go, lead them exactly where we want them." The work was dangerous and exhausting. They were trying to break the fundamental laws of physics while alien civilizations fell one by one to the Reapers. Every day brought news of another world consumed, another species fleeing their home systems. Commander Park Min-joon joined the team after his ship barely escaped a Reaper attack. He had seen the creatures up close, watched them turn a thriving space station into empty darkness in minutes. "They move like they're following a scent," he reported, "always toward the strongest energy source in the area." That's their weakness, Dr. Kim realized. They're like cosmic addicts. They can't resist going after the biggest energy signature they can find. The humans worked with an intensity that amazed even themselves. While alien scientists followed careful procedures and perfect calculations, the human team embraced controlled chaos. They built prototypes that shouldn't work, but somehow did. They combined technologies that were never meant to go together. Lieutenant Yoon So-young created energy patterns that existed in the gaps between dimensions. Park Jin-woo built focusing arrays using human engineering principles and alien crystals. Dr. Song Ha-yoon designed computer programs that could think like Void Reapers. As the weeks passed, their small underground lab became the center of the galaxy's last hope. Representatives from surviving alien civilizations began visiting, watching in amazement as humans built impossible devices with tools they had bought at hardware stores. "Your species approaches problems differently than we do," observed a Zephyrian scientist who had come to study their methods. "We seek perfection. You seem to seek functionality. Perfection is the enemy of good enough," Dr. Kim replied, adjusting a device that was sparking slightly. "And good enough is often exactly what you need." 3 months after the council meeting, Dr. Kim sent a simple message to the Galactic Council. "We have a proposal, and it's completely insane." The galaxy was about to discover that sometimes completely insane was exactly what the situation required. The Galactic Council chamber looked nothing like it had just 6 months ago. Where once proud representatives had sat in magnificent ceremonial robes, now exhausted survivors huddled in whatever clothing they could find. The Etherian collective had lost half their worlds. The mighty Zephyrian Crystal Empire was down to scattered colonies hiding in asteroid fields. Even the powerful Nexus Collective was running out of computer cores to think with. Admiral Jang Hyun-woo stood in front of the assembly, wearing his simple gray military uniform. Behind him, holographic displays showed charts and diagrams that looked like something a child might draw compared to the elegant alien presentations everyone was used to, but these crude human diagrams contained the galaxy's last hope. "You call this Operation Paradox?" Counselor Vexithara asked. Her crystal body had lost much of its glow, and cracks ran through her arms where stress had damaged her. "Your species thinks it can defeat an enemy that has destroyed civilizations thousands of years older than yours?" Dr. Kim Dae-ho stepped forward, his hair now completely gray from months of sleepless work. "Not defeat," he said calmly. "Redirect. The Reapers aren't evil. They're just following their nature like sharks or wolves. We're going to give them something better to chase." Captain Lee Soo-jin activated the main display. She had commanded 3 different ships in the past month as the Reapers destroyed her fleet piece by piece. Phase 1. We create fake energy signatures across 17 sectors. These will look like heavily populated star systems full of delicious energy. The Reapers will naturally move toward the strongest signals. The hologram showed dotted lines representing Reaper movement patterns, all flowing toward bright spots that the humans planned to create. It looked simple, almost childish compared to the complex battle plans other species had tried. Dr. Song Ha-yoon continued the explanation. Phase 2. While they're distracted by our fake energy sources, we use modified quantum tunneling to create null energy zones, not shields that try to keep them out, but traps that they'll fall into without realizing it. Prime 77 of the Nexus Collective processed the data faster than any organic mind could follow. His mechanical body was missing several parts, salvaged, to keep other units running. "The variables are too numerous. Our calculations suggest a 0.003% probability of success. This plan has too many things that could go wrong." Admiral Jang smiled, but it was the tired smile of a man who had nothing left to lose. "Your calculations assume perfect conditions and predictable behavior. Humans specialize in imperfect conditions and unpredictable solutions." Major Young Woo-jin stepped up to the tactical display. He had aged 10 years in the past 6 months, watching worlds burn while he planned humanity's desperate gambit. "This plan needs every species to work together. We need Zephyrian crystal technology to focus our energy arrays. We need Nexus Collective, processing power to coordinate everything in real time. We need Etherian mental abilities to hide our preparations from the Reaper's detection. The chamber fell silent. For months, each species had been fighting alone, using their individual strengths against an enemy that seemed designed to counter everything they tried. The idea of actually working together was almost foreign to them. The Etherian representative's mental voice whispered into everyone's minds, weak from exhaustion. "And if your plan fails? What happens to the survivors?" Commander Park Min-jun answered with brutal honesty. "Then we die fighting instead of running away. But if it works, we don't just survive. We prove that impossible is just another word for a problem that nobody's solved yet." The debate that followed was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Species that had barely spoken to each other for centuries were suddenly discussing how to combine their technologies. The proud Zephyrians admitted they needed human creativity. The Logical Nexus Collective acknowledged that sometimes chaos was more effective than calculation. Lieutenant Yoon So-young presented the technical details to a room full of beings whose science was thousands of years more advanced than hers. "Our equipment has never been tested under real combat conditions," she admitted. "We built these devices in 3 months using whatever we could find. Half of them are held together with industrial adhesive and hope." "Hope," repeated Counselor Vexithara, the word sounding strange in her crystalline voice. "We had forgotten about hope." The vote was closer than anyone expected. Some representatives argued that humanity's plan was suicide. Others pointed out that they were already facing extinction, so at least this way they would go down swinging. In the end, it wasn't logic or calculations that convinced them. It was the simple fact that they had tried everything else and nothing had worked. The humans were offering them something new, a plan so crazy that maybe, just maybe, it was crazy enough to work. As the various species began organizing their remaining resources, Captain Choi Min-ho gathered his human team in a corner of the chamber. "Remember," he said quietly, "this isn't about proving humans are smarter than everyone else. This is about proving that when different species work together, they can accomplish things none of them could do alone." Dr. Kim looked around at the aliens who were now frantically coordinating with his people. 3 months ago, they wouldn't even listen to us. Now they're betting the entire galaxy on our insane plan. "Good thing we've had practice being insane," Park Jin-woo replied, checking his jury-rigged equipment one more time. Operation Paradox was about to begin, and everyone knew that this time there would be no second chances. The battle began in the Kepler sector when the first fake energy signals lit up like phantom stars across empty space. Commander Park Min-jun stood on the bridge of the human ship Indomitable, watching his sensor screens with nervous excitement. The ship looked rough compared to the sleek alien vessels around it, with patches welded over battle damage and cables running along the outside of the hull. "Phase 1 is working," Lieutenant Yoon So-young reported from her station, her voice tight with concentration. "The Reapers are changing direction. They're heading straight for our fake energy sources just like we predicted." Across 17 different sectors of space, the combined fleet watched as the ancient predators took the bait. The Void Reapers moved through space like massive jellyfish made of darkness, their tentacles reaching out hungrily toward the artificial energy signatures that the humans had created. But Dr. Kim Dae-ho, monitoring everything from the main command center, noticed the first signs of trouble. His screens showed Reaper movement patterns that were starting to change. "They're learning faster than our computer models said they would," he announced over the communication channel. "Look at Cluster 7. Some of them are starting to ignore the smaller fake signals." The Reapers' shared consciousness was like a giant brain spread across the galaxy. As they encountered the human deception, they began to analyze it, comparing the fake energy sources to real ones they had consumed before. Within hours, some of the creatures were starting to tell the difference. Captain Lee Soo-jin, commanding the ships responsible for the null energy weapons, made a quick decision. "All units execute Phase 2 now. We're not going to get perfect positioning, but we can't wait any longer." The null energy bombs exploded across space, creating areas of absolute emptiness where even the smallest particles stopped existing. Several groups of Reapers, caught in these expanding zones of nothingness, twisted and writhed as their energy absorption abilities suddenly had nothing to work with. For a moment it looked like the plan might work. The Reapers trapped in the null zone seemed confused, their dark forms flickering as they struggled against an environment that offered them no energy to consume. But the victory was short-lived. "They're breaking free," Major Jung Woo-jin reported. From his tactical station, his voice filled with disbelief. "The null zones are hurting them, but they're adapting. They're learning to phase out of our dimension entirely to escape." On the Indomitable, Commander Park watched his hybrid weapon system struggle against an enemy that seemed to violate every rule of physics. The paradox generators were working, creating types of energy that the Reapers couldn't properly absorb. But it wasn't enough to stop them. The creatures were incredibly ancient and had survived by being perfect predators. Now they were demonstrating why they had lived so long, adapting to human tactics faster than anyone had thought possible. That's when Captain Choi Min-ho made the decision that would either save the galaxy or destroy it. "All human ships. This is Captain Choi." His voice crackled over the communication system. "We're going to try something that will either kill the Reapers or kill us. Probably both." He turned to his engineering team on the bridge. "Park Jin-woo, can you reverse the flow on our null energy generators?" Park Jin-woo's eyes went wide. "That's impossible. The feedback would create a cascade reaction that could tear apart space itself. If we time it wrong, if we time it right." Choi interrupted. "We turn their own hunger against them. The feedback would spread through their shared consciousness like a virus." Dr. Song Ha-eun was already running calculations on her portable computer, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "It's completely insane. We'd be creating an energy paradox that violates the fundamental laws of physics. One tiny mistake, and we destroy ourselves along with them." "Sometimes insane is exactly what the situation calls for," Admiral Jang Hyun-woo's voice came through the communication channel. "All human vessels prepare for Cascade Protocol. Allied ships, I strongly recommend you get to a safe distance." Across the battlefield, human crews began the most dangerous improvisation in galactic history. They rewired their damaged null energy generators and connected them to overloaded paradox devices, creating weapons that shouldn't be able to exist, according to any known science. The alien ships pulled back, their crews watching in fascination and terror as the humans prepared to break the laws of physics on purpose. "The Reapers are moving toward us," Commander Park announced, watching as the dark creatures converged on their position. The human ships were putting out massive energy signatures now, becoming irresistible targets. "They can sense all the power we're generating." "Perfect," Captain Choi replied grimly. "That's exactly what we want. Get them as close as possible." The Reapers rushed toward the human fleet like moths toward a flame, their ancient hunger overriding any sense of caution. They had consumed civilizations for millions of years, and nothing had ever posed a real threat to them. "On my mark, Commander," Park announced, his finger hovering over the activation switch. Around him, his crew held their breath. 3, 2, 1. Mark! The cascade began with a sound like reality tearing apart. Energy that couldn't exist met void that shouldn't be possible, creating a feedback loop that spread through the Reapers' networked minds like wildfire. For the first time in their ancient existence, the Void Reapers experienced something completely new, cosmic indigestion that threatened to tear their shared consciousness apart. The silence that followed the cascade was unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. Where the Void Reapers had once been an unstoppable force of destruction, now only scattered and confused creatures remained, fleeing toward the empty spaces between galaxies. Their shared consciousness had shattered like glass, leaving them as lost and directionless as newborn animals. Dr. Kim Dae-ho stood at the observation window of the rebuilt Galactic Council Station, watching something that would have been impossible just 1 year ago. Human engineers worked side by side with Zephyrian crystal masters, building devices that combined the best of both technologies. Nearby, a Nexus Collective AI was having an animated discussion with Dr. Song Ha-eun about the philosophical implications of energy that shouldn't exist. The last of the Reapers crossed the galactic boundary 3 days ago, Admiral Jang Hyun-woo reported, joining Kim at the window. His uniform was new, but he still looked tired from the months of battle. The Etherian scouts say their broken minds are so confused they probably won't remember how to find their way back for at least 1,000 years. Captain Lee Soo-jin approached with a data tablet, her expression mixing exhaustion with amazement. The Innovation Corps has approved 23 new research projects this month. We've got Zephyrian human hybrid crystals that can store impossible energy, Nexus-enhanced human intuition programs, and something called controlled chaos engines that I don't even pretend to understand. Through the window, they could see the most remarkable sight in galactic history. A young Etherian was teaching a group of human children how to think with their minds instead of just their brains. At the same time, Lieutenant Yoon So-young was showing alien scientists how to embrace uncertainty and use it as a tool for discovery. Park Jin-woo's voice came over the intercom, sounding both excited and confused. Dr. Kim, we need you in Lab 7. The new project is doing something that our computer models say is completely impossible, but it's working anyway. Dr. Kim laughed, a sound that had become much more common in the past few months. What else is new? As he walked through corridors where dozens of different species worked together on problems that each group alone would have declared unsolvable, Dr. Kim thought about how much had changed. The galaxy's greatest civilizations had spent thousands of years perfecting their individual strengths, creating technologies and societies of incredible complexity and beauty. But it had taken humanity, with their habit of breaking rules and refusing to accept that something couldn't be done, to show them a new possibility. The combination of different approaches could create solutions that none of them had imagined working alone. Commander Park Min-jun found him in the hallway, carrying a report that made him smile. The Council has made a decision about all the technology the Reapers left behind when they fled. They want to study it, but only with human supervision. Because we're the only ones crazy enough to poke at things that might explode in our faces? Dr. Kim asked. Because you're the only ones who've proven that might explode doesn't mean shouldn't be tried, Park replied with a grin. Later that day, as representatives from across the galaxy prepared for the weekly council session, something unprecedented happened. Councillor Vexisthara approached the human delegation, but she looked different. Her crystal body now had human-designed adaptive circuits running through it, allowing her to process chaotic thoughts alongside her usual perfect logic. I owe your species an apology, she said, her voice carrying new harmonics that hadn't existed in Zephyrian speech before. We dismissed you because your technology seemed primitive compared to ours. We failed to understand that primitive can also mean adaptable. Dr. Kim shook his head. We didn't save the galaxy to prove we were better than anyone else. We did it because it needed saving, and we happened to be the only ones stubborn enough to try something that everyone said was impossible. As the council session began, they made a historic decision. The phrase that had defined galactic limitations for millennia, "It can't be done," was officially retired from all council proceedings. In its place, they adopted humanity's preferred response to impossible challenges. Let's find out. The session was unlike any other in galactic history. Instead of each species presenting their individual achievements, they shared collaborative projects. The Zephyrians announced they were redesigning their crystal cities to incorporate human chaos theory. The Nexus Collective revealed they were programming their AIs to use human-style intuition alongside pure logic. But perhaps the most significant change was in how they approached new problems. When faced with a challenge, they no longer asked, "Can this be done?" Instead, they asked, "What impossible thing do we need to try?" Dr. Song Ha-un, now leading the Innovation Corps, stood before the assembly to present their latest project. We're working on something we call reality engines, she announced. They create small pockets of space where the laws of physics work differently. It's completely impossible according to everything we know about science. How impossible? Asked a Nexus representative. So impossible that it might actually work, she replied, and the entire chamber erupted in what could only be described as excited laughter. As the session ended and representatives returned to their worlds to share news of yet another impossible human project, Dr. Kim remained in the chamber looking up at the stars visible through the transparent ceiling. The galaxy had learned something that humans had always known. The most dangerous phrase in any language isn't, "This is impossible." It's, "No one has ever tried." And in a universe full of wonders, that attitude made all the difference.